So if you're watching this and you've watched some of my other videos, you're going to be like, oh my goodness, he is stopping a series or whatever again and jumping to a new topic. And that's kind of true, but not. Because this what I'm going to be talking about actually starts at that time period, that exact moment in time, and it's kind of a big deal. So let's just jump in. What we're going to be talking about is my history of Mormonism and becoming a Mormon, and I I think I might just play out the whole history all the way till the end because I'm not Mormon anymore. But I think you could ask anyone who's left the Mormon faith, and they would probably, say the same thing as me, which is you can never really leave it. Okay, so yeah, let's start at the beginning. We're on Ensenada Street in that fancy new house, and which I shared in the other video, that probably like every sixth or eighth house was a Mormon family, and they all had lots of kids. So there was always kids that lined up with my age that I could hang out with. And with Mormons, they have their children like basically being missionaries without knowing it. You know, they're hearing the same information on Sunday mornings, and they're like, oh yeah. They might even learn it in primary or whatever it is. Tell your buddies about this. Um, but more so than that, you get drawn in by the kindness, and I think I might have mentioned that. And and then for me, um, they're inviting me to church activities. They're inviting me to their family home evenings. I'm doing the Wednesday night activities. They're inviting me to church, and so family home evening. I don't know if I said that one. And so you know, I'm. I mean, I know this doesn't make you Mormon, but I'm kind of becoming Mormon by proxy. By just absorbing it, I guess. And the other thing that was really, I guess, sexy about Mormonism for me is, like I said, they were inviting me into their homes, and I got to see the interactions, the family dynamics, and I got to see a very, very like family first, um, family being the most important thing mentality. And as I've shared, and you guys have probably seen a little bit, you'll see some more. Um, that that was not ours was a it was like a house of sin. We kept everything on the inside. We didn't. Yeah, we were very, very private, and no one knew what was going on, I guess. So yeah, so that was. I'm like, oh yeah, that's who wouldn't desire that when you don't have it. And probably the last thing that broke me down was basically any of the Mormon girls that Yeah, I would say any of them. Because even if they were a little mischievous, usually their parents weren't, so it ain't going to take very long, and their parents are going to be like, nah, I don't think so. You can't date him. He's not Mormon. And I finally end up finding a girl that I was completely crazy about. And she was Mormon, and I think her mom was Mormon. And so I wanted to hang around with her. So I decided to get converted or whatever, become a Mormon. And the missionaries came, and they did I think 6 lessons you got to do before before you get baptized, and what is it, anointed, maybe? I don't know what the other part's called, where you get the Holy Ghost. And yeah, I kind of remember. I remember the anointing part, and I don't know. It just was it was a little weird to me. I mean, it wasn't like really strange, but it was weird to me. The other thing that I was really picking up on um, was basically everything they did was, you know, memorized. Like they had to say it word for word. Whether that was, that procedure, or it was a healing, or it was blessing the sacrament, you know, every word for word. And I don't know. It felt interesting. But I thought, I don't know. It didn't. It was kind of taking away a human element to it. Like our, I don't want to say freedom, but just our the personal touch. You know. And but basically the way it was pitched to me, because I must have asked, because I remember the response, but it was basically that, I'm going to say it wrong, but it was so important that you had to have it word for word. It was that important. I still thought in my mind, I don't know. You know I wasn't completely new to God, and I was definitely not an expert, but I figured, I don't know. I figure he could still figure it out if you said 2 words backwards or something. I don't know. But then it also resonated because Grandma in Arkansas, that memorizing of the Lord's Prayer. Okay, so yeah, so ta-da, I'm Mormon, and well, now I'm going to church, and now you got to do the 10%. It's not a request; it is mandatory. And yeah, I'm hanging out with the girl much more. Um, I I don't know if there's really any more highlights I can think, or memories that I specifically have at that high schoolish uh, time period. I one, yeah. I wasn't. I still wasn't like 100% sold in, like, or I don't know, like, I wasn't a diehard like some. But then again, the truth is, most of the kids in the neighborhood, they weren't either. It was parents very much dragging them, to attend. Um, but as I think forward, I'm just kind of going on some of the highlights, you know. Um, the what? Oh, I ended up marrying that girl eventually. So, hey, it was worth it. But it was always hardship. Okay, um, it was always hardship in the fact that I I didn't just fall into that position of, you know, the typical male or whatever's role of being a Mormon, you know. Um, so I wasn't attending church very frequent, you know. Um, it was 3 hours long, and I'd just do other things instead, and that that definitely doesn't necessarily work, or it definitely creates a kind of a tremendous tension. Whether it's expressed or not, it is an absolute tension because, from like pretty much in the womb, um, the the roles of a good Mormon are taught, as and and I could see how that could be a clash, um, for her, that I wasn't all in, I guess. Um, and one of those things is getting sealed in the temple, which is kind of the next progression. And since I wasn't, necessarily paying tithing, or I wasn't going to church, or I don't even know what, I'm sure that, see, what they do is they bring you in, to the bishop or whatever, branch president, and you sit down, door closed, just you and them, and basically they go down through the sheet and ask you these questions to see if you're worthy. Um, and it's got alcohol and coffee or whatever, and smoking, and tithing, sexually, how you're doing. Uh, I don't know. I can't. There's other stuff, and I think part of it you have to basically re-oath, or to the church, if you will, kind of like I thought there was something like that on the list. And if you can't answer them all, then uh, you don't get the stamp. You can't get a temple recommend card, and that is what you need to be able to go into the temple. And so, of course, at one point or another, uh, my wife is a temple card carrying Mormon, and so she can go into the temple and do stuff. Uh, and I actually misspoke. Before getting sealed in a temple, there's getting your endowments, okay, um, or whatever you call it, and so I yeah, I know she did this because she had the garments, and which I can promise you kind of takes away just about all the sexiness. Uh, you know, yeah, you could look them up. And you know, I guess the further she went from my direction, the more strain there was, um, because um, getting sealed in the temple is every little girl's, probably more so than guys, but I would say guys too, their end game, their goal. And then, getting sealed or bind or bound, I don't know how they put it, to your children. And that probably looked like it just wasn't going to happen, ever. And so it kind of kills the dreams of one of the thing. And you have to understand in the Mormon faith, probably the number one thing they use as leverage, or what they got and nobody else has, if you will, is that when you die, if you've done these temple whatever, the procedures, that you will be together with your family, heaven, I guess, so you're all just chilling out. And who doesn't love their family and want to spend forever with them? So it's a huge promise with a huge reward. And so I guess the only way I should have read into that is by her being frustrated with me, meant that she really, really loved me and wanted to spend eternity with me. Now that I'm thinking about it. But probably it was more so for the kids, Yeah, that's a huge, I think that darn near comes in front of anything else. Just my view, my opinion. And I'm not saying that isn't cool, but so there was a time, we had gone to the Nauvoo temple grounds or whatever, because there's no temple down, because he got when Joseph Smith and his clan got run out of Nauvoo, Illinois. When they got ran out, it got destroyed. And I don't know if the church still owned the ground or how that worked, or if later. I probably should have paid attention. But basically, you could see, they had it all cleaned up, the church did at this time. And you could see the cornerstones of the foundation. And, it was so, they're good at this. I tell you, they're really, really good at just about all of their locations of somehow creating a feeling of, I don't want to say like a holiness. It's not reverence, maybe. I don't know. Just it's kind of a neat little deal, and I think it's probably very much done intentionally. I'm pretty sure it is. But anyway, that feeling just kind of gets you to pause and think, and there's just a stillness of it. And then I did the craziest thing that I could think of, I guess. I said, well, if they rebuild this temple, then I'll do what I got to do, and we'll get, married in the temple. At that moment, there was no plans, zero. I mean, there could have been somewhere between, with the uppers, but definitely the public had no idea. And so we left, and came back home, and I don't know how long it was, but it wasn't very much longer. They announced that it was being rebuilt in its original glory. And basically, I had that much time to get my crap together, start doing my stuff. And yeah, Uh, I want to say that I got my endowments. I feel like I got my endowments done in Texas at the temple there as I was progressing. And I can honestly tell you that the procedure that you do, like just the whole thing, to be quite honest. Um, and I'm not saying I didn't enjoy the interior of the temple. It is pretty cool. Not like Donald Trump cool with gold and, but I wouldn't mind going in now. I mean, it was very, but I will tell you the 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 endowment procedure to me, I pretty much was thinking WTF. And I quite honestly would have left the process. Um, but because it was just so bizarre. And yet, all my loved ones are around me, you know, and they're like, oh, you know, and they'd all done this before, and so to them, I thought it was me. I'm like, well, you know, it's almost a little bit of peer pressure, if you will. So we did that, and yeah, eventually the temple got rebuilt, and so we got I guess I don't know if we just got married in the temple or we got sealed in the temple or both. But we had that process done, and that that part was absolutely beautiful. It it really is. And it's kind of a shame. I get it, but it's a shame that outsiders can't if they're not temple card carrying people. I I think they'd almost have more success if they did a little class and said, "Hey, this is how you have to dress. To be able to come in. This is, you know, basically get them to the same level of respect and reverence or whatever." Because I think if they saw just how beautiful that is, I would think you would desire it, because it doesn't exist outside the temple. And it's not so much what is done, it's just, yeah, it was nice. Like, I'm not Mormon anymore, and my wife's not Mormon, we're just Christians. But since I've experienced that, I'm like, I want to, now I do not want to be Mormon, okay? Make that clear. But I would do that procedure with her. I would want to take her there and do that. I mean, that just tells you how, nice it was. Well, I don't know. I was always a boomerang, kind of active in the church, inactive, active. And the the Mormon church created some of my greatest stress, because I have mental health issues if you watch the other videos. Um, but it created stress that I didn't need. Okay, I had enough. And what does that look like? Well, that's, just if you could think of the Ten Commandments, but on steroids, you know, even times when I couldn't work. Well, I mean, they're like harping positions from day one in that church, and it's just like, we men are to be the providers, and the women are these breeding machines, and I mean, there's just certain like norms. So if my ex was working and I'm, bedridden for that spell, then I'm not a man, you know, by the definition it's been instilled in me. And there's a lot of it. It just it created a lot of guilt and shame and not not being worthy. And it was tough for me at that at I guess, like, I feel, and I could be wrong. I'm learning in all this, but I feel like the Christianity, the church, that we've been doing now. No, I mean, they want you to be able to check all the boxes. Don't get me wrong, but I would say more importantly, they're just looking for a continued progression, getting better, kicking off old habits or behaviors, and just just a continuous improvement. And Mormonism didn't feel like that at all. It felt like, well, and I know there's verses, so this is why I wrestled. Like, what is it? Throw off the old whatever and made anew, and dog returning to his vomit, and I don't know, but it was much more feeling like there was a line in the sand, and that was the old you, and you would never, relapse again in any sense. You just be perfect from there on out, and that was kind of one of the requirements to have that your family sealed for all eternity. It's one of the promises you make. So it's a very high stakes religion, a very high stakes game, if you want. I don't, I don't, I mean, I held different callings in the church, so there was times I was very, very active. At one time, I wasn't the mission president, but basically, I was in charge of quite a few missionaries, and that was, and I enjoyed that. That was my calling, because everybody's got a job. Everybody, not paid, so um, and that I learned a lot, but for the most part, I just sucked at being Mormon, and which always weighed on me, which I don't think people realize, because that's just that's how indoctrinated you are into this. Yeah, it's and well, eventually we got a divorce, and I was really really bad mental health wise at this time. Um, Lots of hospital stays, lots of them. But somewhere in there, oh, I remember. I I was kind of sobbing a little bit. We were still in the same house. It had like, yeah, I don't remember how it went, but nobody's gonna love me. Nobody's gonna want me, or I don't know, something like that. And anyway, the this is a true story. She she said, "Oh, that's not true," and actually signed me up for Match.com. I'm not kidding. uh, so anyway, that's how I met my future wife, is on this Match. And I only want to go just barely more into this story, because I think it's funny. So I don't know if this was the first time you would say me and her dated, or what you would call it. seeing her. But on this, it was one of the probably first, if not third, and it was a it was a hey, call her. Can I, can I come see you? And she let me know that they were going to go to church. And so if I was going to see her, I would have to go to church. And of course, think about it, it's a new relationship. I said yes, and I went to the church, went to church with her and the boys. And man, they started that service, and all I could think of was, I'm going to hell. Like, there's electric guitars and drums and all this stuff up on the stage. The guy is bouncing around with his guitar and singing, and like it's a rock band. I mean, it was pretty. I mean, I kind of liked it, but I just thought, God ain't gonna like this. this is not this is not God's style. He likes hymnals, the same. I don't know, however many, and no deviation, no instruments. And the smoke is rolling off the stage, and the lights are going crazy. And I'm like, we're gonna get struck by lightning. I'm just thinking that. And then the message was delivered, and for I don't even know how many. I'd have to add up how many years. I was just used to this. I guess a much more sterilized, delivery. Like, quite honestly, very uninspiring in my book. And yeah, I was always just kind of like leaving without much. But that's not what happened this night, and it's not what happened for the whole, at least next year, where we went every Sunday. And I would say probably 95% of the time, I was in tears at one point or another. I'd never had that happen before, and I liked it. But Mormonism very much still, you know, reaches into my life, kind of in the way that I still look over the shoulder for what Dad would think about something I'm doing. That same thing happens with the Mormon beliefs. Uh, it also, messes with my doctrine and just like the procedures and stuff like that, uh, because it's really hard for me. It is to erase all that, to completely replace it with new. So I'm always like, wait a second, I have to really think before I speak to make sure I've got Mormon mode turned off, and yeah. So that's during that time period, at least the beginning. So that's where it's going. Thank you much. Have a good day.